Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon for Nintendo 3DS. I figured it was about time to do another 3DS game, and I do want to tell you up front this time that there is a written review of this, so if you want to see that, there's a link in the description. So check out the written review at www.thegrapplepit.net, and, it'll be there. Alright, so, now, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is a sequel to the original Luigi's Mansion back on the GameCube. I never actually played that, but I've seen a lot of gameplay of it, so I know a lot of it, I get the idea. And this is a sequel to that in that I guess they acknowledge that those events have happened, the characters know each other, and you do similar things in the game. You don't really need to have played the first one to really understand what's going on in this one. The basic kind of story that happens is that there's this dark moon, and it shatters, and the pieces are scattered all over Evershade Valley, and that means that it creates a bunch of like weird fog, and maybe I missed some details. For some reason that's really bad, and you're supposed to stop that. So Professor Gadd wants you to go in as Luigi with your Poltergust, which of course is just a fancy vacuum to suck up ghosts, similar to Ghostbusters. I mean, no, not at all like Ghostbusters. And you are sent into these, mansions to go get the ghosts. And the idea is to try and find those Dark Moon pieces, to reassemble them, to get the Dark Moon back together, so that all the fog can be lifted and all of the paranormal activity can stop in the area, I guess. And so you go into mansions, and basically fighting ghosts is your main thing. You can go around and explore these mansions, interact with a bunch of different stuff within the mansions, and try to lure out ghosts, try to find out where they are and what they're doing. A lot of times they'll do stuff to hinder your progress, like stealing keys or taking away pieces of like machinery that you need, so you'll have to go and try to fight the ghosts in order to get them back. Fighting ghosts is basically you can suck things in with your vacuum. It's called the Poltergust 5000. I'm just gonna call it a vacuum. He sucks us up with your vacuum, and then there's like a tug of war kind of going on with him, and you have to pull back, the opposite direction on the stick, and then like after pulling up, you build up enough tension that you'll be able to hit A, and then you can do a really strong pull on them, and it does a lot of damage to them because they have health, and eventually you'll be able to suck them up. As you're going through the mansions, you'll also interact with other, like little items and a few non-ghostly enemies like bats and rats and such. And a lot of stuff will yield the dropping of coins or hearts if you lose health, because you can get hit and get hurt, and if you're out of health, you will die. If you collect enough treasure, at a certain point you might find a golden, I guess that's a golden bone, I believe. And this basically allows you to restart. So like if you die, you can start again, and you won't lose all the progress you did in that mission. So that's nice. A nice little thing. And there's also a bunch of gems in the mansions. There's like 13 gems in each mansion for you to find, and usually finding those is, you have to go hunting for them and solve little puzzles like, I have to set this thing on fire and then bring it over to this ice, and then use this thing that's on fire to melt the ice, and then you can get it, stuff like that. There's a lot of cool little puzzles in here for you to solve. Some of them for the main stuff, and some of them are just for, getting gems. Some of them are for treasure. And there's also there are also boos for you to find. In each mission there is a hidden boo, and You have to basically, you get this dark light device which you can use to, you hold that onto objects, and it allows you to reveal, I guess it's called like an illusion, where like they make objects disappear. And if you hold the dark light on those objects, you'll see it start to appear. You hold it on there long enough, and a bunch of little mini boos come out of it. You suck up all the little mini boos, and then the illusion is broken, and the thing exists. And sometimes those are just illusions to find treasure and other stuff, but sometimes that's where the boo's hidden, and you go and you hit the interact button, and then the boo pops out, and you have to fight the boo. And collecting every boo in a mansion then unlocks another mission at the end of the mansion. So there's that. Plus there's boss fights in the mansions. It's like you have to do all the missions and the main like boss fight, and at the very end, if you've got all the boos, you can then do this bonus mission. But finding all of those gems and all of those boos are really a really good way to like encourage exploration and experimentation with all the stuff. You know, interacting with all the little things that they've taken the time to set up inside of the mansions, and it's cool. Like the lighting in the mansions is cool, and like it kind of plays the same song most of the time in the background, but there's still like ambient noises. Sometimes it's storming and there's lightning going on and stuff. And this game actually has like a really good sound design, where there's like a lot of like I'm like, it's like walking on the floor, there's footsteps, and it's like, or maybe I'm walking on like sand, so it's different kind of footstep sounds. All the ghosts have their own sounds, and the bats and the rats, they have their sounds. Paper blowing around. Maybe there's a coat ruffling when you use your your vacuum on it or whatever. And there's a lot of physics with that too. Like, I mean, it's not really complex or like deep physics, but it's pretty good for like pulling up stuff like pulling tarps off of things or pulling up rugs. You can like pull like coats off coat racks and stuff, and like the physics on that for them flying around and stuff is really good. So like there's that, but I really wanted to compliment the sound design, because it's like there's a lot of sounds in there, and they're like super like crisp. And I just thought that it was pretty amazingly good for me to even notice. And it's great for the atmosphere that's trying to build, because while it's not really a spooky game, it's cool to have that atmosphere there. But basically, yeah, you go through the mansions, and it's mission based. So there's so many missions per mansion, and you just basically go and do certain objectives. And depending on which mission you pick, there might be more or less of the mansion available to you, or different parts of it open to you, depending on what is supposed to have happened at that point in time. Although all of your stuff carries over, and you do get upgrades. Like if you your money is cumulative, and as you collect, hit certain milestones in the gold that you collect and in the money, you will get upgrades to like your Poltergust or your dark light and stuff like that. And that's a cool incentive to keep you like searching around for all this, getting money and doing stuff, and going back and doing missions over again. You get to it's still cumulative. But there are, there's a ranking system as well, which only really takes your best stats. So you can work and try to get, you can go back and try to get the secret boos if you missed them, or like the gems that are hidden there if you missed some. You can go back and try to get your best time, and try to catch more ghosts, try to get your best time. Try to get more gold, try to lose less health during the missions, and all those things factor into this like score that you have, even though it never really shows you a score. And you can get a ranking of 1, 2, or 3 stars, 1 being the worst, 3 being the best. You have to have a pretty good score and pretty good stats and stuff to get the third one. So if you're into like trying to get your best times and your best stats on that, trying to really top yourself and get the best records or whatever, like this game has a lot of that in there for you. They're like, the boss fights are actually pretty cool. Some of the enemies you fight are interesting, and they try to throw in more and more of them. The boss fights are really where it stays pretty interesting too. So there's a lot of different ones, and generally they'll be like these possessor ghosts. They'll possess something, and then you have to fight the thing they possess. So it's pretty cool to find those, because those are always going to be unique. And ultimately, you know, you will get all the Dark Moon pieces and you beat the game. And I mean, that's all really the stuff there is to it. It's just there's a lot of different little things you do in between, a couple little mini things here and there that are different to try and spice it up. But it's a lot of, you know, sucking up ghosts, interacting with items in the mansions, and mostly just those things, you know, exploring, experimenting, and trying to find the best ways to try and, you know, take on these different ghosts and the bosses and all that. So it's also the look of it is very it's very colorful, which is nice, and it's kind of cartoony because it's like a Mario game. And I do have to admit that I think one of the biggest draws to this game for me is Luigi. Luigi's awesome. I just, maybe it's just because I played a second player all the time, but I love Luigi. I think he's so cool. And it's like he's got a lot of funny, like, there's some funny lines between him and Gadd. I guess Luigi doesn't say much. Gadd has some funny lines, but Luigi, just because he's like his reactions and his like a few like words he does use, and he's like all scared, and the personality is like, little characterization of Luigi is really charming, and I really like Luigi, so of course came off very good for me, being a Luigi fan. But the game does have some issues, and I do want to get into that. While it is probably good that it is mission-based, because it's a handheld game, so you're going to want to try and, you know, if you have to put it down, you want to either try to finish the mission pretty fast, or, you know, put it in a sleep mode, maybe finish it in some other spots, is so you don't have to try and do it in one huge sitting or anything. I can appreciate that, but I feel like it would have gone over better if it was all just one continuous thing. More akin to, you know, the original Luigi's Mansion, just because a lot of the times it's I don't know, a lot of the times I guess it just feels like you're just getting going and you're doing all this stuff, and then it's like, oh, well, we're going to take you out of the mansion now, you got to come back here and do a thing, and then we're going to put you back into the mansion, and a lot of times they put you back in the same spot you were when you started the first time, and maybe, you know, you can, there's a bunch of rooms you can go into, and you're like exploring these rooms. But, like, the second time you're there, you've already been to all of these rooms. You're only going to be entering a few different rooms and doing some different stuff. So, there's not a lot of incentive to check those other rooms, except for if you're trying to get, you know, the gems, if you maybe miss some of those, or trying to get the booze. But, also, trying to get the booze is annoying, just in that it's not really rewarding. If you get all of the booze in each mission for a mansion, you will then unlock, at the end of it, you unlock a bonus level, which is basically just a randomization, though. You go into that level, and then they just kind of set up ghosts in different rooms, and you can just go and randomly, you know, they're random what kinds of ghosts will show up in the rooms and where they show up, and you're timed, and you're just trying to go there and get the best score and the best time and everything as you're going and fighting all of these ghosts in this random mixed-up thing. Which is cool. I mean, that's a cool idea, and you get to go fight them, but if you didn't really enjoy the combat that much, or if you got sick of the combat of the ghosts, you know, and were a little bored with fighting those, then there's not going to be a whole lot of reason to go do it other than, you know, the rankings. And, also speaking of the rankings, that's like all there is for like replay value in this game. The replay value is heavily like, if you like, you know, doing this stuff multiple times and trying to do, you know, get your best time and your best amount of money and the, you know, ghosts captured, not get hurt, trying to do all of that and trying to get 3 stars on all the things, it's like, if you're into doing that, that's fine, and it's good for you. And you'll probably like the online, too, because you're trying to go through, and it's like a cooperative, cool, like, online thing, going through this, big randomly generated, like, towers, and like, you're going with other people, and you're kind of competing with them, but you also, like, are trying to do really well on those, and get really good scores. It's just, that's interesting, and that's neat, but, like, if you're not into, you know, the leaderboards and rankings kind of thing, or if you're not, you know, if you didn't enjoy the combat too terribly much and really, you know, wanted something more unique, you're not gonna like the remixes or that stuff that much, because it's more of, like, the same combat you've already done, just, it's slightly mixed, slightly remixed, and kind of rehashes a lot of the same, you know, you're gonna use the same skills and everything you've been using the whole time anyways. So, to me, anyways, those weren't that appealing. Collecting gold gets a little tedious after a while, because after a certain benchmark, you then have all of your upgrades, and then getting gold is almost useless. Basically, it gets to the point where you have all the upgrades, so then finding all of this treasure is like, after you get so much, you can randomly find one of those golden bones, which will allow you to come back if you die. So I would just kind of search around to find enough to get one of those, and then I would stop interacting with most of the stuff, because I knew the boos weren't going to give me anything I cared about, nor was that gold at that point. And there's also the thing with the gems. While there's all those gems in there, like, getting all the gems is fun. It's cool to interact with stuff, and I did like being able to do, you know, the experimentation, the exploration kind of thing going on with that. But if you get all the gems in the mansion, it just unlocks a statue of Luigi that you can look at in the vault. Who gives a shit? It's just a statue. So it's fun to do those things, but they're not really rewarding to do, so if you don't do them, I like that they're there. I really like hitting the gems, honestly, but like, and the boos. It was fun, but it wasn't real rewarding, and I didn't feel like I had to get them. So if you don't care about that stuff, then mostly it's just the main story things and going around trying to run to each objective, which is still fun. But again, it gets repetitive when you have to go into the same rooms and do the same kind of stuff multiple times, you know, like over and over, and like a nitpicky thing would be like some of the nitpicky stuff, I guess. Like, one of them is like, you know, they have these little cutscenes that happen, or sometimes you'll walk into a big room, and usually during the cutscenes or walking into a big, like, huge room or something for the first time, you'll notice the frame rate goes a little choppy, and that's fine. It's not a big deal because it still looks fine, and I think the graphics look very, very nice. The game looks very nice. But, like, you know, some of those parts get a little choppy, so that's a nitpicky thing, but that could be fixed, I guess. Like, the story, not that it really matters, but, like, the story stuff, and we're gonna get into a little bit of a spoilery thing here, so skip ahead a couple minutes or something. But, like, for one thing, it doesn't make any sense that he's doing this in the first place. It's like, okay, we're gonna try to investigate what's going on with the Dark Moon shattered and everything, but it's like, it feels like, you know, like there's just ghosts in these abandoned mansions that just fill up this same valley. It's just a bunch of, you know, old abandoned mansions. These ghosts that are in the mansions aren't hurting anyone because they're abandoned in this isolated part of the world. Who cares? And so maybe I just forgot or something what the main, like, problem with that was. I guess maybe if there's too many ghosts, it was going to mention collapse, but that's something that isn't even really mentioned until way near the end. Another thing that's not really mentioned until way near the end, part of it's like King Boo comes into the picture way near the end, is when you find out that King Boo is behind it. Also, there's, Mario has been kidnapped. That's the big spoiler, but it happened in the first one too. And in the first game, it was like, that was one of the things you learned pretty early on, so it was like motivation to keep going. You don't really have great motivations to keep going in this one, other than finding those Dark Moon pieces because Gadd wants you to. And when you find out that Mario was kidnapped, you as the player, maybe you knew. I saw his shoe in, like, the third mansion or something when they were carrying, like, a covered-up painting away of, like, I saw, like, his shoe sticking out in the painting or whatever, and it was like, I thought that was probably Mario because of the shoe. Then they showed another one in, like, it was, like, I think it was either in the fourth or the fifth mansion, one of those. They showed, like, a picture of, like, you see, like, the M on his hat. So it's clearly Mario. The player's probably going to know that's Mario by that point. But neither Gadd nor Luigi know that it's Mario at that point either. So it isn't until, like, the final mansion where you actually find, like, there's actually the character motivation of, like, oh, there's Mario. Like, you should go and try to save Mario because he's your brother. This thing that probably would have been, you know, worth knowing a lot earlier so that you'd feel more motivated, but whatever. I don't know. So, like, I thought that was a little strange, but again, the story isn't real important in this. It's about walking around fighting ghosts, and I do feel bad that some of the ghost stuff got repetitive because near the last half of the game, they stopped really adding a lot. They didn't add as many new ones, and instead they had, like, powered up versions of the old ghosts. It's So it's the same thing, they're just harder to kill. They just take longer time to kill. So, I don't know, I didn't think that was great. There were a few really good missions at the end, though. I'll give the game that. Even, like some of the missions and boss fights and stuff were pretty interesting, and the couple of missions in the Last Mansion. Last Mansion is awesome. Last Mansion is just, like, so much better than the other ones, and, like, it's got a lot of, like, puzzly stuff that requires you to kind of go to different parts of the mansion and, like, jump through hoops and, like, use elements from some rooms and putting them into different rooms in order to solve the puzzles, and they have really intense fights with big groups of ghosts that you're supposed to go after, and there's, like, 2 boss fights involved with it that are really good. It's great. But I have to say that another little thing is that what's weird is that the second boss of the game is somehow easier than the first boss. The first boss was actually pretty tough, and the second boss I thought was really easy, and I don't think it was just because of my playstyle. I think it was because there was just a hell of a lot less to that second boss, and it seemed like they maybe should have been flipped around, or maybe the first boss should have been a little easier, but the boss fights are really good, so I can't complain too much about that. Maybe get another song. They reuse the same music a lot in there. I guess that's what I would complain about. Luigi's Mansion: Dark Moon. Overall, it's an okay game. I mean, it's a good game. I enjoyed it a lot. I had fun, and there's a lot of cool stuff here. Control might be a little weird to get used to, but then again, I'm also kind of new to the 3DS. It could just be me. Having X open doors as the same as interacting with other stuff. I kept hitting A to open doors, so a lot of times I would shine my flashlight at a door because I'm an idiot. Another little thing I didn't mention, I should have mentioned in the complaining part, but I'm going to mention it now, is also there's a few times where they want you to, like, do this shit and, like, angle the 3DS around to, like, look at stuff. You can just use the stick to do it, but they also want you to do that sometimes. And it's just not that accurate. It's just kind of shaky and weird, and it's difficult. But, yeah, overall, it's a good time. Like, it's very colorful. It's not really spooky. Maybe if you're 5, maybe. It's got Luigi in it. Luigi's awesome. If you like the original Luigi's Mansion, I think you should definitely check it out. And it's all in, like, a handheld, so that's cool. And if, like, or if you're into, like, the Ghostbusters, I guess maybe that'll make you somewhat interested in something like this. If you really like Luigi and, like, if you like Mario games and, like, want to check out some spin-off stuff, I guess. If you're really into, like, checking out all of those leaderboards and trying to compete and playing online, this is a really good game to get for that as well. But, honestly, I would say that you might only want to pay about roughly $20 for this game for most people, just because it's like at most $20 because it's cool and it's fun, but the replay value isn't really there. There's not really a good reason to replay it since you already know how to solve most of those puzzles now. You know how to play most of it, and a lot of the fun and the mystery of figuring that stuff out is kind of lost after you've beaten it. And it's a game where I like it, but I know I won't play it again, like, possibly ever, but if I do play it again, it'd be like years from now when I've forgotten most of the stuff. Because a lot of the interaction stuff and the puzzles and doing all that, those are the parts where it was fun to explore, and, like, most of that gone. There's not a whole lot left for me to check out in this. But I really enjoyed the experience. I'm glad I got to experience having this. It was really fun, and, I love Luigi, so This was a nice thing to get for my birthday. It was nice. What I'm saying is, yeah. So, I guess I don't know. Like, did you guys like this, or did you like the first one better? Did you guys play both? Maybe you guys have better opinions on it because I've only played this one. Leave that in the comments about. You can also check out the written review. Again, link in the description on www.thegrapplepit.net. There'll be a written review for this. And I want to do some more 3DS games, so I really wanted to power through and finish this game, even though it does get tedious near the end of it. And, I think I rambled too long for this. So, yeah, that's the game, everybody. And, I... Yeah. Oh yeah.